Ash had stolen the color of the city. Above, behind sealed solar shutters, there was a sky no one had seen in centuries. Below, in the lower levels of Hive-Kaspar, the air simmered with the taste of metal. Every breath left small wounds in the throat. Aslan, a factory worker, walked toward his assembly line. Grease on his hands, sleep still heavy in his eyes, his pace was the same controlled rhythm measured by quotas. The morning felt normal, but normal in Hive-Kaspar was always the biggest lie. Passing an old lift shaft, he caught his reflection in the cracked glass. Each day his face seemed less clear, as if the buildings were swallowing him. He shook off the thought and took his post at Line 18 Delta, Station 5, attaching safety couplings to thrust nodes, a four-step motion his body could do even in sleep. The red digits of the quota board raced above him. Near midday, the air through the overhead conduits changed speed. An old worker's instinct felt the difference. When Aslan clipped a coupling, a thin crystal glimmered inside the housing and vanished. He ignored it. By evening, it happened 3 more times. The metal itself seemed to take a breath. He wrote nothing in the log. Questions made files. Files learned faces. That night, the floor near the loading bays was warm, though no pipes ran there. When he pressed his shoe down, a heartbeat thudded beneath. The fungus on the ceiling flickered faintly, then died out. Everything seemed fine. Robots moved, supervisors shouted, hands worked. But at lunch, his water bottle had a hairline crack that wasn't there before. The water tasted of nothing. Yet for a second, his tongue felt the fiber of an unknown plant. Moments later, the quota board subtracted 1 unit, though the line hadn't paused. By evening, the lights blinked off for a breath, and on again. In that flash, he felt someone behind him, but the corridor was empty. A perfect diagonal cut marked the floor, thin and dark with no debris. He found a soft white membrane inside a water filter. It melted into silence when touched. The system didn't alert, but the panel flickered for a millisecond, a ghost record only visible to those with clearance. Aslan had none. That night he dreamed of a second city beneath the hive, breathing in the cold. When he woke, his skin was slick with sweat, yet the room was at normal temperature. Dreams weren't crimes, but they slowed workers. Slow workers got listed. A maintenance camera glitched. In one frame, an extra screws shadow appeared on the table. In the next, it was gone. He didn't stop the line. There was no reason to. But inside, he felt a cold draft from nowhere. Then Hive-Kaspar began to show its hand. The quota jumped by 10 units with no command update. The line sped up. Fingers pressed harder. And Aslan suddenly remembered a childhood street that never existed. The memory switched off like a light. The red emergency lamp blinked 3 times and stopped. The report box was empty, only a clean white sheet inside. He scratched it with a nail. Nothing. But the underside felt metallic cold. When he turned it over, invisible letters appeared and vanished. He decided to stop writing, start counting. How often the lights blinked, the air turned, the numbers changed. His mind began to calculate everything. The result? The system was producing more units than visible, like a hidden line working alongside them. A robotic arm entered maintenance mode on its own. It stayed offline longer than scheduled, yet production increased. No one cheered. Extra output meant extra exhaustion. The air felt heavy while the arm paused, a pressure that vanished when it resumed. That night, the floor hummed faintly beneath his bed. Behind the wall, no breath, but a hollow rhythm, as if time itself pulsed. He realized hours were only illusions built by machines. He stayed silent. In the hive, silence was the safest prayer. A metallic clang echoed through the ducts, turned and settled near his feet. Steam rose and dried instantly. When he pressed the spot, he felt a shallow gap, a hollow forming beneath the floor. That evening, the line shut down and restarted without command. The footage was instantly archived in a restricted folder. No one had access, yet many workers dreamed the same scene that night. Shared dreams weren't crimes, but they were never reported. Shared things sometimes became more real than reality. Maintenance crews entered the ducts for an overflow check. 3 went in. 2 returned. The third was quietly reassigned to a list without a name. By evening, the duct was sealed with a metal mark bearing symbols of no known language. Touching it felt like cold water for a second, then dry steel. That night, Aslan set a chair beneath the air vent and waited. He slowed his breathing, counting. At 3, the vent trembled. At 6, the floor shifted weight. At 9, a distant knock echoed, then another from the opposite wall. He stopped counting. The fan sped up slightly, as if someone else had reached 9 too. The quota screen glitched. For 2 seconds, a strange symbol flashed, half an H, half a circle, divided by a razor line. No alphabet matched it, yet his mind recognized it instantly, like an ancestral seal. He lowered his head and worked faster. That evening, a cleaning drone passed. Its light doubled his shadow for a heartbeat. When it moved on, the shadow didn't align again. He froze. The floor beneath his footprint shimmered faintly, as if a needle of light pierced from below. That night, the room panel flickered green, hiccuped, then steadied. He saw something move under the rubber edge of the door. Weight, pressing, then lifting. The door was locked. No one outside. The notebook was blank, but the hive had taken another step closer. Next morning's announcement carried a sound too high for human hearing. For 1 second, every mind burned white, then cleared. Work continued, but every hammer strike was half as strong. Thousands of small imperfections spread through production. By sunset, output ended on a number that existed in no target sheet. People dreamed of corridors that didn't exist. Some walked in sleep, leaving footprints only visible in ultraviolet. Drones erased them at dawn, but the eyes that saw couldn't forget. Everyone thought they were alone in it. No one spoke. So the circle never closed, only stretched wider. Aslan stopped counting the hive. He let the hive count him. He matched his rhythm to the echo above. First unit, a pause. Second, faster. Third, a slip the machine corrected. Eighth, the unit assembled itself before his hands touched it. He held his breath. Maybe the camera didn't see. Maybe it did. Either way, the hive was beginning to like him. When a city starts liking you, your survival is in danger. Affection demands closeness. Closeness demands a price. That night, a new seal appeared on his door instead of the usual notice. It bore that same alien mark, the one his mind already knew. He touched it. A salty film formed on his finger and vanished. Inside, the room was normal, except for the faint breath behind the vent grate. The air exhaled, then went still. Morning didn't speed up the hive. The hive put morning on its own pace. When I opened my eyes, the room light was at the set level, but the digits on the wall clock changed sluggishly, like someone had drained the grease out of time. I washed my face and, for a beat, the water turned silver, then dull stone. The house log was clean. The person inside wasn't. I stretched in silence, laced my work boots, and stepped out. The corridor air was warm. Something unseen had just taken a fresh breath. Floor strips were perfectly spaced, except one was a hair thinner. Most people don't see that here. If you do, you never forget. I planted my step on it and felt a soft tendon give and settle. It felt like the city noted me. The first turn came in the lift. My thumb left a faint, dark smear under the glass button, and the panel changed itself. The arrow leaned toward a level called Epsilon. Doors shut. When I pulled back, the old label returned, but the cab slid sideways, service shaft style, places citizens never reach. The noise and wall tremor were normal. Doors opened on no labeled platform, just a long corridor lined with sealed doors, each stamped with the same nameless mark I'd seen before. The far end faded to a half-light, and the air moved like water flowing through an unseen channel. I turned to go back. The cab had no buttons now. It closed and disappeared like a dot. Door 7's seal looked new. I touched it. Warm, not hot. A heat that didn't sweat but made your skin's pores breathe. A gentle push and it slid open. Inside was a room no larger than my unit, but the walls held small windows instead of ducts. Each window looked into another room with ordinary scenes. Food on a table, tools, an empty chair, leftover light. Not real windows, yet each had its own microclimate. I held my hand near one and felt real chill, as if water truly sat there. In the floor, a shallow circle hid under the tiles. I stepped on the rim. Air swirled. A thin tube rose, flashed a clear droplet at its tip, then sucked it back. No machine in sight, yet the motion screamed syringe. One window's scene changed. The empty chair now had a child's school bag. Dust lifted from its strap and tapped my window, leaving no stain, then dissolved mid-air. This room sat off the map. The scenes behaved like reality, but the rules served themselves. Back in the corridor, the light ahead made 3 moves, 1 step forward, 1 back, 1 sideways into the wall. Not a normal electrical fault. When it settled, fine floor marks appeared like survey ticks. I stepped on each square. Each chimed a bone-deep bell. By the last square, my heartbeat synced to the tiles. The plastered wall inhaled, cinched inward, and opened a narrow path. The path led to a rectangular room with nothing but a single needle slowly turning from the center of the floor. Not a compass, not a clock, but precise enough that you couldn't catch it shifting. As I neared, the needle drew a chalk-clean line up through the air to the ceiling, sketching a doorway that became a real door. It opened, not to darkness, but to a hidden city running inside the hive. Its rules were different. Buildings small, streets wide, surfaces soft, skin-like. A drone zipped past, but its shadow stayed with it for 7 steps, like the math of light had snagged a tooth. The nameless mark repeated every few meters, humming with a soft vibration braided with a faraway human pulse. When the pulse changed, streets reoriented. Here, paths opened to rhythm, not intent. I matched the rhythm, finger on my wrist, heart to street. 1 step and a wall cleared to glass. A nursery growing instruments, not plants, each sprouting from green sheaths instead of being forged. 2nd step and a low current rose underfoot. A far wall slid aside to reveal a bridge over a misted cavern. Beyond it, the same city spread, roofless under a dim, sourceless white. Mid-bridge, the floor breathed. Below, a massive wheel turned in fog. Tiny lights winked on each tooth, counted, then blinked out. Every 10th cycle, a thin ripple rose at the railing and vanished. I cupped my ear. When the ripple crested, a buried echo of the upper hive's noise brushed my hearing and cut off. The bridge had patched me into what most think is a wall. Past the bridge sat a 4-way square. Each route had a manual sign, just numbers, yet arranged like grammar. I picked the path whose numbers were my birth sector code reversed. It drifted right, looped smooth, and, after 14 steps, opened into a hall where 3 needles spun at different rates, sketching 3 door scripts in the air. When their speeds matched, the scripts stacked into one. That door opened only when 3 tempos aligned. Less chance, more choice. Inside, a childhood not memory froze me. A playroom, scattered parts, a wooden car with a crooked rear wheel. Not from any day I recall, but my breath stalled. My hand on the wall woke a hidden scent. The parts slid into place on their own. The wheel straightened. The room vanished. Only soft air and that now familiar mark remained, no longer a seal, more like the first stroke of a name. Next, a workshop with prototypes of the safety couplings we build upstairs. Same form, different substance. Not metal, something living that behaved like metal. I neared one. Tiny pores opened and closed along the edge, stiffness easing for a heartbeat. In that softness, a hairline slit jetted out, wrote a number in the air, and snapped back. It was the exact unit the line finished that day without my hands. My throat went dry. Silence wrote the next line. A soft thump in the ceiling, like the one under the bridge, quickened until the walls shifted a fraction, like ribs moving with breath. A seam opened to a long trough of still water. Designs formed inside, not on the surface, within the skin of it. The same patterns I make on the assembly line, recorded in liquid like a secret ledger of our hand rhythms. My entire cadence scrolled there, history and all, the latest beat pulsing at the moment the unit seated itself. Then another cadence entered the layer, one I didn't know. Not from any other line or sector, not bone-driven. With it, the water budded a bloom, impossible in plain water. The bloom opened on a new coupling design that needed less human touch. The city was learning our rhythms and molding its own. Whose city was it? No answer yet. On the way back, the neighborhood had shifted, walls tauter, floor breath heavier, and a new kind of light ahead, not lines but a hush of dots. Close up, it felt like the prep for a major announcement with no people around. Letters wrote themselves in the distance. The air temperature ticked up and down with each character. When 4 were done, hidden horns along the street released a voiceless shriek the skin could hear. The roof twitched. A thin bar appeared over the windows, the same mark engraved again and again. Back at the bridge, the wheel below spun faster. Lights held longer before dying. Every 15th tooth, a smaller wheel slid out and back. I'd never seen that logic. The bridge joints softened for a blink. My feet sank 2 inches and rebounded. The bridge tagged me, not on flesh, but in rhythm. After that, the streets would open easier to my beat. The hive was ready to show inner bearings, and readiness costs. The first payment came at the sideways lift. The cab waited, buttons restored, but the industry arrow was dead. I pressed the nearest live arrow. It took me to a level with no ID plate, just a blank wall. My palm found the same faint moisture I'd felt under my unit door seal. The wall breathed and opened. Not office, not housing, a silent hall with no visible ceiling, 7 pillars in the center, each stamped with the mark. Between them, the floor rose a little, humming with a giant system's soundless spin. Behind one pillar, something moved. No person, just air wearing a garment. The seal on that pillar darkened for an instant. The floor slit open, releasing a scattering of small tiles that arranged themselves. Each held a line's rhythm. Mine was there, but not leading. Ahead of it, a cadence with 2 hands, human and other. Maybe the hand that seated my unit. Walking in that cadence, my own steps adjusted, taught without being told. At the far edge, the floor melted and a stony path rose. Nothing like the hive. Like an old lair waking inside the city. At the end sat a small room with wood. Rare here. Dry, quiet wood. A chest with the ghost of an old seal. My palm pressed. The lid didn't lift. The chest breathed, dust sighed up. Then the lid slid itself. No jewels, no papers. A smooth stone with the faint mark. In my hand it warmed, the symbol sharpening. All at once the pillar seals flickered, and the absent ceiling revealed itself for a heartbeat. The hall felt like the inside of a body, with light flowing like blood. On the way out, the lift's industry arrow glowed again. I stepped in, and just before the doors closed, I felt a wave, like someone in the hall raised a hand to say goodbye. The hand wasn't shaped like ours, but the goodbye was. The lift returned me to the morning corridor. Same doors, same angles, different cadence in my legs. With that beat, I could see the quota digits upstairs were a hair off. Only I could tell. By evening, the line stopped on a number that was neither big nor small, just new. Supervisor checked the log. Normal. Still, everyone felt something had shifted one breath away. That night, the second payment arrived. No seal on my door now, only smooth metal with a faint, far pulse. My palm warmed it. A thin moisture bled, then dried. The lights dimmed by a single degree. The floor breathed. The wall opened a hairline and closed. The city had marked me, permission and constraint in one. Paths would open for me, and close for me, by my own rhythm. Before the night deepened, the last turn took its due. Lying in bed, air from the vent plucked a new beat. It carried the distant curve of a childhood name without the sound. The tempo rose. My eyes drifted shut. The breathing streets returned. Not the bridge this time, the hall with 7 pillars, the raised floor no longer mute. The spin showed a face, not human, not machine, the hive's intent, working beyond supply, quotas, and logs. It said nothing, but I understood. The city had chosen me for its inner molds. First condition, tomorrow, make 1 unit less and keep it off the books. Second, at dusk, cross the far side of the bridge where the white has no light, and rhythms learn from people on their own. Near dawn, the beat faded. I woke to the same room, same light, tasteless water. But my palm still held the ghost feel of the stone from the wooden chest. Heat rose, the mark clarified, then sank into my skin. That's when I learned the price of being favored isn't taken from the outside, it's collected from within. I stood, laced my boots, opened the door. The hive breathed, and the corridor's smoothness stepped back half a pace, like the road itself moved toward me. The city ties mourning to its own pace again. Up top, the numbers looked normal. Down below, the heartbeat rhythm has changed. Aslan opens his unit door, and the corridor's smoothness takes a breath and gently pulls his step inward. The stone isn't in his palm anymore, but the heat of the mark sits in layers under his skin. The hive knows that heat. Paths will open to that recognition. A tiny scratch on the lift door that wasn't there last night. A hair-thin engraving you only catch from an angle. Aslan doesn't pick the diagonal lift arrow. He just changes his breathing. The lift obeys without a button and drops to a level the logs never mention. The doors open. Underfoot feels like a soft rope. Gravel-sounding steps that scatter into the skin before they reach the ear. A blind corner where the wall loses its spring and feels like bone. Bone means a closed rhythm corridor. He stops, sets his palm to his ribs, matches his heartbeat to the building's tremor. The wall ripples, bone turns soft, a slit flashes into a black door and smooths over. 1 breath doorway. He slips in, the wall goes stone again. A dim hall, new grid of glowing squares, each holding a line's rhythm. Thousands of hands archived in the city's body. He doesn't search for his. In the center, the circle of spinning needles from his dreams. Now, here, awake. Each needle turns at a different speed. He steps into the clear space. 1 needle locks to his breath. A second catches some distant worker's hidden pulse. A third snags the cold drift from topside air. For a heartbeat, all 3 sink. A line cuts down from the ceiling and a new door appears. Beyond it, long drying ducts for leftover molds. Not metal, but just as hard, softening for an instant as inner heat rises to finish their shape. Thin fog hangs between them. Dots of rain stitch into patterns. In 1 duct, the same coupling he assembles upstairs is growing, only here it needs less of him. The mold finds its center on its own. A fog-wrapped bridge. Light particles spiral down and flip back up under each step. In one spot, the floor sags, like a giant rests there again and again. He stops. The hollow sends its silence up into his ribs. In that silence, a wheel's mute, counting. Every 10th cycle, fine moisture beads on the rail, makes a fingertip-sized mark, and evaporates. The city is counting. Each count is a prepayment for a future path. The first clear installment. A tight square of pillars, each base stamped with the mark, the depth showing importance. The 3 center pillars are fresh and deeper, sign of a recent big decision. Heat pulls from the seals into his palm and writes a number in his head, the number he must not make upstairs today. Small number, big decision. The city doesn't always take by pushing hands harder. Sometimes it teaches a hand to pause so the inner molds can feed. A room of dry tablets instead of water troughs. Each tablet holds a day's rhythm, with a hair-fine vein of light running off the edge. One space is empty, like it's waiting for something important. He feels that empty slot will be filled on the day he puts the inner system ahead of the upper one. The slot breathes. The hall cools a degree. The city makes room. An open well, not fog below. Clear space with cotton thread whites running up and down. The threads don't tie off anywhere, yet never break. He reaches out. One line passes through his fingertip and out the other side. His palm chills, sinks to his pulse, then normal. No mark left, just a thin new current added to his rhythm. It's the language of roots that never make the map. A terrace where the roof appears in white and disappears in dark. Long tables with little snail-like devices. When darkness grows, they crawl and draw new lines along the edges. No numbers, just gaps. One snail pauses, adds a tiny bend, and the entire flow changes. That single bend can swing a large process. The city writes decisions in a snail's pace. Snails obey rhythm. An iron frame, not window, not door, with air set like glass inside. His palm on it makes a soft wave. Beyond, he sees the factory line. Another hand is working where he should be. Same. Rhythm, close speed, but a different pressure. That pressure makes one unit a shade better. The city sometimes spawns a stand-in, so the upper system benefits and never suspects the inner hunger. It's a trade. Both sides pay. A worn arch into a new hall. Fewer pillars, wider bases. Along their edges, oval vents hold moving air. Each oval carries a sector's breath. Warm farm vapor, dry residential air, sharp arms, smell. The city studies every breath and strings them into rhythm to open routes. This is where the master steam flows get rerouted. Aslan doesn't add his rhythm here. This is a post-selection level. His name isn't fully carved yet. A muted, soundless siren, the same skin scream that rides big announcements upstairs. A grainy shadow lifts and settles in the center. Under it, a new door hides in the floor, unseen, still there. He slows his ribs. The door shows for a blink and moves, meaning the city gives doors only to those whose breath matches the mold's appetite. Scattered small tiles with pinhead stains. The stain won't touch a finger, but it presses the eye. He steps on one. The floor dips, changes. Now he's on a soft ribbon, carried back to the dry tablet room. The empty slot rises and falls faster, like writing is near. Today's missing unit is accepted. He eases. The top numbers won't notice. The inner molds will complete a different count. Back at his unit. Door smooth, but the seal breathes warm just under the surface. Air is nominal, but 1 degree quieter. The vent's rhythm shifts, same spin he felt on the 7-pillar dais. For a moment, it feels like a small part of a huge system is thumping inside the wall. The sheet's edge opens a tiny split and seals. A sign, not a message. The city is inside all the way. Next shift, the quota board drags by a hair, and the line nails it without a shiver. Counts clean, logs clean, supervisor calm. In that exact moment, a not-there hand shadows across the solder line on the overhead camera and vanishes. No one sees, yet every body feels it pass across the skin. Fear stays below, wonder stays within. The hive dissolves both into each other. A new flow inside the ducts. It always ran right to left. Today it runs left to right. Routine hides the change in noise. When change hides in noise, the city makes big moves. 2 units come out so precisely, the raw materials flaws disappear. That only happens when inner molds finish and lend strength up top. The borrower hand is clueless. The lending mold grows deeper. Evening slide under the residential floor plate. It dips a quarter of a unit and returns. That tiny tilt shifts the corridor's long breath to a new level. The usual metallic chill in the throat eases. Lighter steps, finer rhythm. Fine rhythms open doors heavy feet can't see. The wall near his unit shifts by a hair, sketching lines only the optic nerve can catch. An invitation. He accepts, lies on the floor, not the bed, and matches breath to the dais spin. Veins rise in the wall. In one, the nameless mark blossoms, glows, and sinks. Behind it is no void. There's a new conduit that leads straight to that city of ducks. For the first time, the inner city shows a faint thread inside a residential unit. The fee will be taken on a later turn. At sleep's edge, a new language. His eyelids are heavy, his pulse light. In that light pulse, the snail's lines start moving on their own in the dream. The tiny bends he saw awake are now snapping parts into place by themselves. He sees the city turning the human hand into a mold. Hand shifts from its own rhythm to the city's. When that finishes, you draw the snail's line awake, not just asleep. Near dawn, invisible needles prick his palm. He can't see them, but the skin counts them. Each needle makes a number. Each number closes a seam. Each closure lights a root and snuffs it. What remains? Today he must take the diagonal lift to the white level. There's a second bridge there. Under it, no wheel. Just a still ring that doesn't turn, it thinks. By that ring sit the choices the city uses to write new truces between workers' top world and the inner hunger. He steps onto that level. The white drags the roof closer. Bridge is stiff, airflow thin. The ring hums with silence. In that quiet he hears the cold accounting the city shares out and then seals over the people. A fine scratch lives on the ring, felt without touch. It lays 3 paths before him. 1. Grow inner debt to deliver more units up top. 2. Invisibly shave the upper quota to feed the inner city. 3. Bring both onto one shared rhythm where no one wins alone. The city nudges his feet toward the third, fresh lines written in a skinny vein of air as he leaves the bridge. Pure choice. They hook to the new vein in his unit wall and rebalance the air at home. The room gets a barely there ease, deeper, shorter sleep, quicker, gentler waking. That's the state where hands err less and inner diagrams light up sharper. Exactly what the city wants. The lift stutters on the way back, skips 2 levels, then straight up. Doors open. Supervisor's world is the same. Numbers, lights. But the robotic arm holds a soft stance like waiting for another arm. The wait is brief. It listens inward, places perfect pressure without moving, and resets. The unit seats. No noise, no log, no pride. Just the hand and the city breathing together. Evening makes small tiredness feel big. Less work, more spread out fatigue. That happens when the inner city reshapes a major vein. The corridor ribbon shows again under the floor. Half speed. Half speed is when payment is taken. Aslan lays a hand down. The ribbon twitches, then straightens. Price collected. In return, tomorrow morning a door will open inside his unit for 1 breath only. In that breath, he must fill the tablet that's been breathing in the empty slot. Last slice of night. Wall veins glow faintly. The sheet edge writes its old split and seals again. After that cue, sleep stops being dream and becomes root. Eyes closed, but the hall, pillars, dais, needles, ducts, bridges, white ring, all sit lit in place. The city opens a room inside him he's never seen. No tablets, no trough, just one deep breath and a simple line appearing and fading. The lines of first-hand rights, and the city finishes. The last lines of that room. Near morning, warmth pools in his palm. The mark shows again, but not alone. A circle clings to it, unfinished, opening and closing as it opens. First lesson of the city's true language. The circle never completes, so the path never shuts. It stays open, so rhythm stays fresh. He wakes. Room the same. Door smooth. Numbers straight. But under the breath, the city's prayer sits one layer deeper. Stepping into the corridor. A very faint frequency hangs in the air, skin only. The skin reads it, and the duct flow shifts. A clear stream rises from a bend, unseen, and the floor feels lighter. This is when the city chooses someone new or lifts someone old. Aslan knows another foot will feel that ribbon today. The city doesn't move alone. It casts nets, traces of the blind partner, the stand-in hand he saw in the frame. That evening, a soft flare blinks behind his unit in a blurred camera frame and dies. The angle sits just beyond human comfort. At that angle, the new coupling mold finishes inside. He lifts the unit, half the usual weight. The city has helped from within, so the top numbers stay happy. The rings balance in action. The deal holds. At night's end, a dry warmth in his palm. Closing his unit door, the metal exhales. A vein lights inside the wall, runs to the opposite corner, flashes a door for one breath, then goes dark. That's the one-breath door. He sits on the floor, matches rhythms, lines his heart to the city's flow. The room swells slightly and returns. In that blink, the empty slot fills. The tablet completes and sinks. Price paid, mold finished, route secured. Not an ending, an invite. The city changes breath. The white lowers the roof. The ring lays 3 new paths without a sound. Upstairs, quotas the same, logs clean, board content. Inside, the ducks branch, snails right bends, needles sync rhythms. The beat between Aslan's ribs isn't pure mechanic anymore. The city's quiet prayer is braided in. Tomorrow, a new scratch joins the lift door. A new blink door opens in a diagonal hall, and every 2 minutes another turn cracks open where a new balance gets written. Morning keeps its numbers the same, but the city's inner current has already turned toward a final choice. Aslan opens his door. The corridor dips under his step and levels out. The faint heat of the mark still lives in his palm. The hive recognizes it, and the diagonal path opens in silence. He reaches the raised hall. The 7 pillar seals breathe together. The circle of needles looks still, but it's syncing rhythms. 3 spins align. A line drops from the ceiling. A door appears. Beyond it, the white bridge and the still ring at the same time. The city has placed the last decision there. On the bridge, the wheel below turns slower. The ring holds a quiet spark. The wheel counts hunger. The ring counts need. Aslan softens his breath, matches the wheel, fixes his eyes on the ring's scratch. For a moment, the scales match, and 3 paths open. Give everything to the top, give everything to the inside, or balance both, so nothing looks missing and nothing grows thirst. He tightens his rhythm a little, chooses the 3rd path, and places his palm on the scratch. The scratch drinks heat. The mark lights inside his skin. The white ceiling lowers. The ring cools. The wheel exhales. A thin ribbon stretches between them, and a new line writes itself. That is the ending line. Back in the hall, the needles slow and settle in a straight row. The hidden system swells up, then sinks, like the city has reset its molds. The pillar marks don't fade. Their shine changes to a soft light that sinks into skin and lasts. That light will open future paths quietly. In the tablet room, the empty slot is filled. A new tablet holds Aslan's final rhythm. One unit less, one extra path. A balance that fits the upper numbers and feeds the lower hunger. The tablet's vein is no longer tense, steady, gentle, safe. The room expands with a calm breath and rests. On the white terrace, the snail's lines show firm bends. The city has written it. Top and inside are no longer enemies. When the top needs more, the inner mold lends. When the inside needs more, the top still hits quota even at one unitless pace. The balance must live without noise, so the snails crawl in silence. At his unit wall, the final door appears in a vein. It opens for one breath, just enough to reveal the inner conduit, then vanishes. Aslan touches it. A little warmth sinks into his skin. Last sign. Paths will be born from inner molds now, not from outer maps. The room keeps a softer degree. Sleep is short and deep. Waking is clear and quiet. On the factory line, cameras look normal. The arm applies perfect pressure, and the unit seats itself. No flash, no glitch, no odd logs. Where the hand once trembled, the rhythm now corrects before the tremble. No chart proves it, but every unit shows it. Supervisor calm, board straight, quota met. In the raised hall, one last tide rises and falls. The pillar light doesn't vanish, but it says goodbye, not come. The city doesn't close its inner doors. It stores them between the ribs and smooths its link to the upper world. The ribbon that once lay only for chosen steps widens so new steps can land when needed. Durable, without noise. The true ending line. Aslan walks the corridor. Flat plates, clean air, fixed lights. Inside his ear, the rhythm he once heard under the bridge is now the city's mechanical prayer. The mark stays inside his palm. Scratches fade to traces. The snails keep writing quiet bends, so the hive keeps breathing. The top numbers don't drop or spike. The inner molds don't starve. Paths open by heartbeat, not by will. Aslan steps beyond his name and into the city's rhythm. Not a guardian, not a messenger, just a quiet builder whose steps lay ribbon when needed. Every 2 minutes, a small turn appears. The price is paid in silence, and a fresh balance line writes itself within. That's the close. No loud decree, no names erased or raised. The hive holds with its modest lights. The inner city breathes in its web of conduits, and the hidden mark in a single palm keeps dimming and glowing. The path never makes a full circle. It stays open, so when need shifts, the rhythm writes a new line without a sound.